obviously this is an exciting time for us. We did this once before. We're here with the Propstore and their Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction in Los Angeles, 2023. We're here with Chuck. Chuck was generous enough to take some time and put aside some really cool props that we're going to be looking a little bit closer at today. And if you're listening, our movie Propcast listeners are wondering, why are these props? These props aren't even released yet. What are we talking about? You guys, we haven't even covered these films yet. This is a little teaser. We're going to be jumping into these films in the coming weeks. So this is kind of like a blueprint of what we'll be doing in future episodes. And we're so excited to be here talking with you today, Chuck, and getting a closer look at these items. So we definitely appreciate you taking this time.
Well, thanks for letting us, I guess, be a sneak peek to the future episodes. And people always love sneak peeks. They always stick around for them. So hopefully there's a few people watching this to get a sense of what you guys will be doing in the coming weeks.
Yes, absolutely. So when we were going through the catalog, and there's an unbelievable amount of items that, listen, if we could have picked everything, we would have done it, because we love film, we love movies, and there's so many films in there that we wanted to get into. Specifically, we didn't take anything from Back to the Future yet. We haven't done
one of my favorites. I would love to talk about Back to the Future.
Back to the Future is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I don't know why I have been holding that episode back from the audience, because I want it to be this big grand thing. And I see that you guys have a lot of props from Back to the Future 2, and because we hadn't done one yet.
Yes.
Yeah, we hadn't done one yet.
We do. I think 2 is the prop heavy movie. I guess a little bit in 3 as well. And for those that are interested, you could go to propstore.com, which is where we have our auction catalog for view. And we have things, again, a little bit of a teaser. We have things like the Pepsi Perfect bottle. We have an Ooh La La magazine with a sports almanac cover. Got to hide that when you go to class. And then we've got a couple of hoverboards. So, great conversation about which is your favorite hoverboard, but that's when you guys get to Back to the Future too.
Yes, absolutely. We will get to that. It's for sure coming. I don't know why I'm holding it. I just want it to be.
You're holding tight.
I am. I'm like, this is going to be the best episode we've ever done.
I've brought it up like 3 times, and you're just
if you can only get like Bob Gale or somebody else from the production on to talk about how they created those or how they envisioned the future. I've had that discussion with Bob, and it's pretty fantastic to think about. They were creating that stuff almost like 20 something or 30 years in the future, and some of it came true, some of it didn't come true. So that's the cool part about it.
Yeah, I think we're both suckers. Tyler and I are both suckers for time travel films. So you could put time travel in the worst movie of all time, and we'd be like, I don't know, guys, give it a chance. Like, it's like we're addicted to that stuff. So yeah,
like
Back to the Future.
So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's iconic. So yes, like I said, we went through these ones, and we were trying to map out what episodes we would love to get into. And today, we're going to start it off. I think let's just start off with the one that's lighting the room up right next to you. iRobot. iRobot. Tell us a little more about this is the robot from iRobot with Will Smith. And it's so cool to just see it there live in person.
Yeah, it is cool. And I apologize for folks. It does actually light up in the head. We didn't light it up, so otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it, but you can see how he glows in here. My understanding about how they filmed, a lot of in that there's a bunch of robots. So he is, this is an example of one of the main robots, but frankly, they all look the same, but one of them comes to life, and they've got these different lights in the middle, and I'm sure you guys will talk about that. But throughout, there's a lot of CG that's going on throughout the movie, but for some of the effects, they actually had to create practical models of the iRobots. So there is more than one of those out there, but it is a sort of a plastic shell. It's a very sort of thinnish, but translucent, so you can see through it, but it's got a little bit of a film to it. And they made it with, sort of different robotic parts here to make it look like a robot, although these arms and legs don't work like a true robot. And then they added lighting components to it as well. So a great thing, it is about the same size as myself. So it's a full humanoid figure. And, frankly, it makes a great lamp at home. You can't, if you want to read a book, why not read with iRobot lighting your night up for you? But I think it's just a fantastic thing from that movie, and everybody remembers these things. It's almost like he's sitting here ready to talk to me.
I hope not.
Yeah.
With AI these days, you don't know what's talking and what's not talking.
Yeah, I was scared to get into that, but yeah, it feels like that movie is going to be something we're going to look back on and be like, hey, they kind of got it right. Like, I don't think we're too far off from robots that are going to be doing a lot of the stuff they did in that movie.
I would agree. That and Terminator 2 is becoming more realistic every day. But anyway.
Yeah. For sure. So,
but no, great prop here. Yeah, I think for that movie, I guess you guys can talk about what else that people would want. But I think this is sort of it in a shell. This is the iRobot himself.
Yeah, and I believe his name was Sonny in the film. I don't know if that's exact. I think that is I would imagine that is Sonny, or no?
Well, again, I think they probably had multiple different versions of the robot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm not sure exactly which one was Sonny versus the other ones that were not Sonny, but they all look the same in the film there. So.
Right, okay. For sure. The closer images that you have on your website, propstoreauction.com of this item, the eyes, they're kind of creepy looking.
Yeah, they are.
In person, how does that look? Like, is it just like when you're passing by at the end of the day, is it kind of following you or what?
Now that I look at it, and I'm looking at it now, it is, for those that understand the sort of prosthetic eyeball, this is kind of like a medical grade, I believe, fake eyeball inside. I can't guarantee because I can't see it, but it does look like a full eyeball that they mounted in a metal bracket, and the metal bracket mimics a human skull. It's really sort of built around. It's got cheekbones. It's got different different, like almost like processes that are coming out from the eye that make it look sort of like a sunshine pattern that are keeping it in place. But the more you look at it, there's sort of this metal Terminator-like under skeleton, if you want to look at it that way. That's probably even more creepy if you took the actual face off to look at. But a work of art. I mean, that's the thing about these things. They may be scary, but some artists work very hard to make it look very scary on film and in person when you have them next to you.
Looking at this now, like since iRobot came out, I've gotten like a degree in like anatomy and stuff. And I'm just appreciating where they have like the biceps and like the thicker leg muscles. And even in like the lower spine area, like they did a good job of making it look like what a human anatomy would look like. Like those little wires going to the spine, we have muscles that do that. And it's just like, I actually am appreciating this on a completely different level now. This is awesome.
Yeah, and even the spine itself, with you've got your different sections of your spine with your spinal processes in the back. It's pretty crazy that they did that, but in a simplified manner, which I guess made it a little bit easier to make more than one of these robots. But it's very cool and very sturdy as well. So this is you kind of hear that.
It's the flick test.
the
flick test. What is this made of? It doesn't go bing, so it's not made out of metal. It's more like a hard resin cast there, but it's pretty sturdy in there as well. And then these plastic parts are lightweight. They do move around there to make it there, but they're sort of a light, thin plastic in there. Again, it's translucent, but which gives a feel of skin to it. And then obviously they had in mind that they were ultimately going to light these, so they had to make the chest that way as well. But cool. Awesome piece of technology. And you can't see the back of the neck, but they do actually have sort of like spinal processes on the back of the neck piece right back here as well. So to try to mimic a human. Of course, there's a bolt next to that, which hopefully most people don't have. I did break my neck years ago, so lucky I don't look like that. But yeah, a great piece of of movie, I guess magic. But they made it look as real as possible, and possibly what things will look like in 30 years from now.
Yeah, I can already see this flying up the draft board for when the iRobot episode releases. You can imagine that now that again, like we're looking at these even closer now, they're going to be a little closer to our hearts. So when we're drafting, we're going to be fighting over this stuff. It's going to be pretty exciting. Let's move on to Troy. Now, this is a movie that I have not watched yet. It is on our I guess it's going to be on our future episode list. But I have not actually seen this yet, and I know Tyler's a little upset with me. He couldn't believe it when I told him. I have 500 movies behind me on Blu-ray and DVD, and Troy is not one of them. So I'm excited to watch it. I checked out the runtime. It's almost 3 hours. So I'm like, this is going to be...
That was before most movies were 3 hours, right?
Yeah. So this is going to be an exciting one.
It's got 3 hours of Brad Pitt in it, so...
It does. There's a lot of good action. Like that shield gets work in the movie, so I can't wait for you to see it. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So let's take a closer look at it. Yeah, it's bigger than I thought it would be, for sure.
Yeah, it's very cool because I think I won't actually lift it up. It's actually made of biscuit foam, so it's lighter for the actors to carry. This isn't a heavy shield per se, but it looks heavy, and it looks like it's got metal. So this is all metal painting that was going on the foam biscuit. But and on the back, it's actually got a leather grip as if it was a real shield, so that when the actors were playing with it, I'm sure it did have sort of a real feel to it. But what's interesting is we also have the sword in the auction as well. And what you'll notice when you watch the movie is the sword is actually part of the shield. This is the design of the sword. It's kind of got a curved blade to it, and they mimicked it. And when you put those two things together, it's fantastic as far as a display, but it's interesting how they incorporated, one thing that was a weapon into the other thing that's technically a shield, which isn't a weapon, but it's protecting you from it. But it's consistent throughout from a design perspective. And I'm obviously intentional, but just shows the thought process that was going into designing this. And I think what's great from a movie standpoint is you can put your head, you turn this sideways, makes for great action as far as showing the actor's head while they're actually doing their scenes. So, I'm sure there was some practical, I'm sure they tested this at some point. They probably had a rounder shield at one point, but decided on this cutout version of it, which is very unique and cool looking as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks awesome. I'm just curious. I know that this sword, you said you guys have this sword as well. We noticed that in the catalog. Yep. Did those come from two separate places, or were they together?
I believe they did. I believe
okay.
I wasn't working with the consigners, but I believe they came from two different sources. Now where this is biscuit foam, the sword is actually full bronze. And so it is heavy. So now, and they're always, for those that don't know, there's always different versions that they make for the film. So there's always typically a stunt version of this, what they call a hero version. A hero version would be used for up close shots. And it might be made of something like metal because they want it to look as real as possible. There were probably rubber versions of that as well that they used as stunt swords, and potentially something as light as bamboo, which they'll sometimes use for that. But the one we have is a quote unquote hero, which is made out of bronze, which just again, the pairing of these would look, if you can afford it and you can buy both in the auction, those are both great examples, but you could choose one or the other, and that can be your debate down the road, I guess.
What I also love is there's fine detail towards the center of the shield. Like you can, if you pull it up on the website, I'm looking on the side as well. Like they have etchings, and there's actually like I guess it might even tell a story, but it sort of looks like a cave wall or something like that.
Yeah, I think when you look at, even if you go back in Greek and Roman mythology, you will, or not mythology, but history, you'll actually find a lot of things, whether it be urns or other things that have those types of those designs, which are around, in this case, I believe soldiers fighting in a battle that's going on, but they have very detailed figures in there. And you do get that kind of craftsmanship in the shield as well, which is, again, a work of art in many different ways.
And I know that they like to do Easter eggs. I wonder if whoever designed this had something in mind. I mean, it'd be hard to track that person down, but I wonder if they were trying to tell a specific story.
Good question. I don't know the history behind that, but you're right. It's always fun to look for those kind of Easter eggs. And was this based off of a very famous piece of art, or was it created from scratch? Is there somebody hidden in there that that is key to the plot line that we may not see right away, but is hidden in the design in there? So, and it's great for those, again, that want to go to propstore.com to look at the images from the auction. Whether you're watching this now, before or after, you can go see high-res images that will allow you to see, all those things that you're just talking about in detail.
Yeah, Doyle, absolutely. What's up?
You've got to see what Brad Pitt does. Like he mentioned earlier, like the recesses in the shield, the stuff that Brad Pitt does, like you could tell, a lot of it looked like it was him and not a stunt double. Like the way he flowed with this shield and sword throughout the movie, and spears at times too. Like not everyone had a shield like this in the movie. He really stands out because it follows Achilles, who is just one of the greatest soldiers in history. You've got to see what he looks like. Like if we had this sword and shield, we'd look like dweebs with it.
Yeah.
To this man.
For sure. Yeah. We're not all, we don't all look like Brad Pitt.
Yeah. It's
yes. I mean, come on.
This is not Brad Pitt.
Hey, don't sell yourself short, Chuck. You're close, man. You're close.
My wife probably thinks at least I maybe looking like a Brad, but it's probably.
Oh my gosh. All right. So let's move on now that we're talking about the shield. Let's talk about the sword that we have on the table as well. This one obviously does not go with that shield, but this is Blade's blade. This is Wesley Snipes' blade.
Wesley Snipes' version of Blade, which there will be a new version of Blade coming out to sort of reinvent the franchise to some degree. But this is again what they would call a hero because it's made out of metal. Now again, you can do the ping test and you can hear that metal. And but it is aluminum. So again, there might be a version that is something heavier like a steel. My gut is most of the metal ones would be aluminum because it is lighter weight and it's shinier, which actually shows well on camera. And there's different versions. I think we've had other versions. If you remember, there's little spikes that come out from that. And I actually prefer this as far as if I had to own a version. And again, I talked about the fact that there are different versions of it. What I like about the fact that the spikes aren't there is even from a display, it's not distracting and it allows you to really hold this thing yourself and really play with it. Where the other version of that, you have to worry about these spikes that you have to grip onto. So yeah, I don't know what you guys want to say about this one, but
well, for sure. So well, you said play with it. I'm scared by the amount of money that it would take to have this. I don't know if you'd be out in the backyard wielding it around, but
I would. 100%.
Oh, come on! I mean, anybody, like, let's say you own this or you own Conan's sword, you're going to do a pose like this.
You got to do. I mean, definitely taking pictures.
I can't do it here, but Blade was more of like a one-handed sword type of person. But you got to at least mimic the actor at some point.
I'm definitely twirling that in the backyard, 100%.
Yeah, it's a power move for sure. When people come over and be like, "Hey, you want to check the sword?" Like, sure, I'm sure people have swords on the wall, but it's not Blade's sword. Like, this is awesome. Wesley Snipes in that film was incredible. And what's cool is, yeah, it's his blade, but like the dude was putting in work without it. He didn't even need it. He was doing his own moves out there, and it's such an amazing thing. Obviously, the end of the film kind of culminates with him just going nuts with that thing, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's such a cool piece of movie history. And like you said, Blade is now going to be put back into the fold of the MCU sometime here in the near future. I feel like they keep pushing the date back a little bit, but
yeah, there's rejiggering of the whole schedule, I'm sure. But yeah, pretty soon. I think within the next year or so, I think you can expect to see.
Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. And I feel like when people say that Blade's out now, and you say, listen, you want to see something cool? I have Blade's blade, which is that to me that's like the coolest line in history. You do that, that's pretty sweet.
Right, and when you're choosing one item from the movie, it's always great to choose the thing that's the movie was named after. I guess it's the person and the object, and it's kind of a play on words. What's interesting in the design on this, and I don't know if you guys can see that, is this part right here is flat, while the rest of it is round, which actually allows for a great grip on it. So as a right-handed person, I am now sort of gripping it sort of on the palm. With the flat side, and then you can actually hold it much better, and actually increases your ability to hold a sword like that. So again, some interesting design built into this thing here, and I believe there's a little sort of hidden button. It doesn't work on this particular version on this, but yeah. And again, somebody designed it. There's some very, if you look again, you can go to propstore.com and look in detail, but you'll notice there's some designs also built into this as well, into the hilt.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely encourage everybody who's listening now, whenever you're watching this, head over to propstore.com and just take a closer look at a lot of the items they have. It'll blow your mind what they have in this catalog and up for auction at a given time. And the detail that you guys take to really get in and get all the details on these items is really good. Kudos to you guys on the website. It looks great.
Well, we look at it like fans ourselves. We want to give everybody high-res pictures because that's what we would want. We don't, the worst kind of auction is where you go there and you have to like ask them for extra pictures because there's one picture that's sitting there that's really low res. So I think we've learned as fans ourselves around what we want to see in the details. And frankly, it also helps the buyer look at the details and compare it to the movie itself and try to actually screen match. A lot of times we do try to screen match items, which means that we can identify specific flaws or things that are unique to that item and match it to the one that appears on screen. And there could be especially with like a Blade's blade, they could have used 10 different swords and 10 and a bunch of different sequences. So what we always try to do with our items is to say, is this the one that was used in this scene? And those high-res pictures allow you to do that. We don't do it for everything, very frankly. We don't have time to do it for every single item that we own and that we've sold in the past. So it's a great little adventure if you want to say, "Ooh, can I try to identify which sword this was? Because I noticed something there. Maybe I can go into the movie and actually see that same flaw somewhere else."
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great feature you guys have on your website. Especially, I like looking at the high resolution pictures, but I also love that when you put the frames from the film in, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that scene. Like even if you haven't seen that movie in a long time, you're like, oh yeah, that's the one. That's what makes it really fun to look at your website.
Yeah.
And especially with like a blade sword, because versus other props, like they took time to make that an intricate, like that got focus in the movie. Whereas like some of these other things were just in the movie. They were like either people were trying to steal Blade's sword, they were trying to use it against him. He had like gimmicks with it. Like it was really a focus. So it's cool that you're able to do that.
All right, so let's.
And when you get to Blade, I guess there are other great weapons in Blade, so worth a discussion when you get to that movie.
No, for sure, absolutely. Let's get to hugging some faces here. Let's go to Alien versus Predator. I wanted to word it that way. I don't know why it sounds weird when you say it, but Let's take a look. Let's take a closer look at this animatronic face hugger.
Yeah.
Weird looking creature. It's a scary little thing, and people are into this. I know a lot of people that are into, not just horror movie, but just this movie. I don't know. It kind of transcends. It's a different kind of action horror type film. But Alien versus Predator was one of the more fun movies to watch in those early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time, obviously, they paired those two mega franchises up. And I won't spoil the ending, but the ending's kind of cool. I'm sure most people out there have probably seen it, but you'll all watch it together. But the face hugger obviously had its roots in the earlier Alien movies. And I think, what shocked me in the earlier Alien movies was, especially when you had the chest burster and the fact that these aliens incubate inside of humans. And the face hugger is what implants those eggs inside of the humans or any other animal that they come in contact with. It's a spider-like creature. We've got some other very cool spider-like creatures in this auction, including the thing. But that I think, it almost looks like fingers. Like I look at it here and I was like, oh, it's almost modeled after bony fingers, and you can almost feel it wrap around your face in that regard. So it's very cool. And I think this is an animatronic version. There are static versions of these that we have seen as well. The animatronic versions obviously mean they spent a lot of time and money working it. They don't always work after production. They usually cut the wires that go with this. But this at one point, had a servo that created that effect that it was grabbing onto something, which is just shows how they made this movie.
Yeah, I would say out of everything that's on the table right now, that would probably be the scariest one to just display in your home. It's a cool story. Obviously, it's iconic, but man, that thing is, it's funny looking. And if you check out the photos, propstore.com, the closer look photos on these ones would, I don't know, man. My mom, I can just imagine. She's terrified of spiders. She could even, I think she's even seen this film, but if she saw this, she would run. She would go running for sure. This thing's terrifying.
It is. And I think what's interesting when you see it in person, as I am with the lights blaring on it, they coated it in a very high gloss. And the thought was these things usually have like ooze and stuff on them. Yeah. And I would call it shellac for the I guess simplistic, but it's kind of a clear coat that goes on top of this, which serves to probably protect the rubber that's underneath. But it also gives this feeling of like, it's kind of like if you were to touch it, it's like, is it going to be gooey or
ew?
It adds to that effect
That's
of like
awesome.
creepiness of like, I don't want to touch this thing, but I kind of want to touch this thing to see what it actually does.
Yeah, that's the amount of detail that's put into to all of these props is incredible, and just for you to be there in person and to be that close, it's got to be a fun job to just be able to see all this stuff come through and just iconic film history.
Part of the joy of collecting. Yeah, I think people that collect this stuff, that's the joy that they get, is they get to bring that and study it and live it every day. And we obviously have plenty of treasures here at Propstore every day, but part of the reason we do it is so that you guys can take them home with you and you can enjoy them and cherish these, because the people that made these, obviously Alien versus Predator was not the first Alien movie, and this is not the first face hugger, so they learned from earlier iterations of the face hugger, and always what I always find is they always try to make improvements on the design and add something new and add something different that's going to excite the audience there in this movie. What's different about the face huggers this time? What's different about the alien creatures, hint at the ending, but
So that's what's cool is practical props, especially nowadays with CGI and everything, and it's kind of like it's still happening, but it's not happening nearly as much as it was back in the day. So to get to see that and how much detail that they put into it, you just got to respect it, how much that happened back in the day, as opposed to now where it's just like they just do it on a computer. It could just it's a piece of blue, it's a blue square, right? And they just turn it into a face hugger. So yeah.
They do, but I think there are certain directors out there that only want to have practical props because they appreciate the lifelike nature that they can bring to it. So you still do have some people out there that will say, let's invest and actually do this by hand and do it the sort of quote unquote old fashioned way.
With that being animatronic, I'm only imagining having that on display at your house, but hooking it up and not telling people. Like imagine going to a friend's house and like you're going in the middle of the night, you want water and you just see the face hugger just like twitching,
just
like
just
something subtle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be definitely weird. Let's move on to something that looks a little more safe, I guess. Let's go to Star-Lord's helmet. All right, Guardians of the Galaxy 2014. This movie, it's so good. Obviously, MCU has been crushing it for years, but this was to me one of their first I wouldn't say risks. I mean, they were crushing it for a long time, but to go out and do a movie like that isn't really as mainstream. It's not one of their heavy hitters. I remember coming out of that film not knowing. I went in not really knowing who these characters were, and I came out saying this movie was like it was amazing. I love these characters.
Yeah.
It was a fun movie. It was kind of a different atmosphere, different vibe than a lot of the movies that they were putting out. And that's Star-Lord's helmet, man. That's the guy. That's really cool that you guys have that.
That is, and Chris Pratt played Star-Lord in that. And people have commented in person when they see this, like, he's got a big head. And I'm like, well, I have a big head as well. So maybe that means I can wear it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I'm a longtime comic book fan, and I actually read those. It was a series called Marvel Presents where you saw the Guardians of the Galaxy. And to say that the Avengers, frankly, everybody considered them sort of B-level characters, the X-Men and Fantastic Four, which had gone over to Fox. Early on, those were sort of the A-level characters that they had sold off, and Marvel had sort of kept the other characters. I considered these kind of the C or even maybe D-listers. But what was interesting on the whole take was they decided to take Star-Lord, who, if you go back to the comic books, Star-Lord was not one of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. There was a character named Starhawk that was actually the leader of that. The only character that actually stayed around from the comics into the movie adaptation was Yondu, and he moved from being sort of the main team member to being a bit of an adversary in the movies. There was a Star-Lord character in the comic books, looked a little bit different than that, but they put Rocket Raccoon, it was a backup character in the Hulk and had this weird Mike Mignola miniseries. Groot, which was a Jack Kirby created pre-hero monster character. Just a lot of things that you didn't know was going to work, and just James Gunn made it work fantastically. So I totally agree with you. And when you first see the character, this is how you see him. You sort of see him coming out of the stand. He's wearing this mask. You don't know who he actually is. And then the mask, that was more of a CG effect, will come off.
Yeah.
But there is a practical, the top is missing here, so you can see his head or see his hair come through. And the mask itself is attached by magnets in the front and the back that actually to do that. And there's obviously a light switch that controls the eyes here for that effect. But great if you happen to be in a sandstorm. Maybe the eyes help clear up, make it easier to see in a sandstorm. I guess that's the thought process there.
Yeah,
I love that you touched on the history, like especially with the movies, because like you said, they sold off their main characters and they had not a lot to work with. And I know we didn't even do this on purpose, but people attribute Blade to like reviving Marvel, or at least giving it that second chance. And for Star-Lord,
I'd say X-Men too. I'd say X-Men.
X-Men, yes.
First X-Men were big surprises in some ways, but Hugh Jackman really made those stick.
Yes. Yeah, and just like for us to be able, we were kind of wondering like, how do we pick what are going to be important? And for Guardians of the Galaxy to come out like in phase 2 after Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 that weren't really well received, and then after Guardians, because Guardians was a funny movie, like it's considered a comedy, and then you see that tonal shift in the Marvel franchise where they start to go more comedy. They're like, all right, this is our niche, this killed it. And then they just continue to go with it. Like that movie, I don't want to say that it was at pivotal. Like I kind of do want to say it's pivotal. It was
I totally agree with you. I hadn't really thought about it in that way. It was, as you said, the first biggest risk that they took. But with that risk came a huge reward because they did change it. The following Thor movie that came out was, you saw a humorous Thor as opposed to a very serious Thor in Dark World. And Dark World, frankly, didn't work as well as either the first movie or the third movie in many people's opinions. And I think it was partly because they realized that they did need that tonal shift, and they saw the reaction they got from Guardians and said, maybe this can work with some of our other characters.
Yes, and we won't get into that. I don't want to get into any spoilers of Guardians 3, but that's out now.
I haven't seen Guardians 3, so I can't spoil it yet. So.
Yeah, so
we're
not touching on that. But Guardians 3, and from what I understand, obviously the way they're marketing this is kind of like the wrap up of the Guardians as we know them currently. And I'm sure that they'll still be a part of the MCU in the future, but. A lot of change, a lot of shift. But this is the helmet that started it all in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's just a really cool piece, and it's so cool that you guys have that. And you can check it out, like you said, we're looking at it with you right now, but at propstore.com you can get the closer looks.
It looks
and there's I believe if you actually turn them on the side, and I don't want to mess with them too much, but I believe there's lights on the side as well as in
that's
the front
awesome
that you can kind of see. So they have a lot of detail on it. If you look at the paint close up, and again, you can go on propstore.com and sort of see the close-up shots. They've sanded the paint down a little bit because, again, when we see him first time, he's in a sandstorm. So, and I think the thought is he's been wearing this helmet to protect himself out in space and other things. It's beat up, it's old, it's been protecting him for a number of years. So it makes sense that it's not fresh off the shelf.
Absolutely. I appreciate that comic book insight, Chuck. I didn't even know all that stuff.
Anytime I can. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. That was amazing. I would say let's move on to, I don't want to say we're saving the best for last, but I know Tyler's kind of geeking out. He's the Harry Potter guy. So Harry Potter memorabilia, Harry Potter anything. He owns more Harry Potter things than I've ever seen anyone own outside of Daniel Radcliffe, which I don't even know if he owns it, but I'd imagine he has a lot of Harry Potter stuff just laying around in the warehouse. But this is the robe, the wand. This is iconic, iconic stuff, and I know Tyler's excited to get a closer look at this.
Yeah, so here it is over here. A few things I'll say is first, I won't get into the whole history because it sounds like Tyler knows everything about the books. But Chamber of Secrets was probably the first time that, as a book, I think most people started picking up the series because they had started hearing a bit of the buzz of Harry Potter after the first book. It really started taking off in the second and then the third books. And by the time you got to Order of Phoenix, it's like they were selling, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, and everybody was lined up around the block to get those things. So even from book standpoint, it was early on. But you have to think about the progression of the kids themselves as they were playing these roles. Obviously, they did play them back to back. But if you look, this is obviously a Daniel Radcliffe costume from early on because he's small. It's a smaller costume. As he got larger, I'm sure if you see a costume from the later movies, it's much bigger than that, which is kind of cool because it puts it at a point in time. But what's rare for this is, Harry Potter, I believe, you look at the franchises in movie props that are the most important, and Star Wars is probably the number one. There's other great ones like Batman, Superman, some of those sort of 70s, 80s films like Goonies and other things that have hit hard. But for a newer generation, folks that might be in their 40s now, or even 30s, the Harry Potter franchise was really the thing that sticks to them. And I like to tell people that, the things that mean the most to you are those things that you encountered probably in the ages of 10 to 15, maybe 10 to 20. And that's what, people spend a lot of their lives trying to go back and recapture that youth that they had and those fun times that they had. Many years from now, Harry Potter it's going to continue on. There's a new television series in the works, as I'm sure you guys know. But having the original Harry Potter costumes is fantastic. And this is the most complete. We've never offered a complete Harry Potter costume. We've offered glasses in the past. We've offered a wand in the past, but we've never had the full costume, including shoes. But what's even better about this costume is the distressing to it. Is this fake? It is fake mud, and when you get this, if you buy this, I'll tell you, it's the estimate on it is $75,000 to $150,000. So it's not going to be the cheapest, but I would not take it to the dry cleaner. That's what I would tell you.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
need the mud on it.
Yeah, you need it.
Yeah, it's seen some things, and that's what makes it iconic, right? It was in the film. He's obviously gone through it at that point in the film. But yeah, like you said, to have the glasses, to have the wand.
And the wand is being sold separately, just to just to be clear.
Yeah.
So you could buy the costume. The costume does come with the glasses, but if you want the real complete set, you can buy both the wand and the costume.
Yeah, obviously the wand's iconic just as much as the outfit. Maybe probably more so. Obviously, what's a wizard without his wand? That's
It is, and again, I'll play. See, this is what people are going to do. If you buy this one, you are going to do something along those lines, So, but it's a wood wand. This is actually, although I believe these were made out of, if I remember correctly, I have to look at the description myself, but I know some of them were like resin that were actually painted to look like wood. I'd have to even check our researchers to find out because my eyes are not so good in the light here. But there were versions of this. This was probably like what you would call his normal wand that he would be carrying around. But when they did special effects on it, there was a one that had a glowing tip to it as well. Ooh, okay. So they did make different versions of this that were sort of special effects versions of the wand. This is just a static wand, as they would say, that is not. But what's interesting with Harry Potter's, and I'm sure people have seen it, is the simplicity of Harry's wand compared to all the other wands that are in there. Every wand in the film has a different design. If you go to one of the theme parks and you buy a wand, you obviously have your choice of different wands. But Harry's is the most plain, which speaks to the almost the low-key nature of the character, of the fact that he wasn't all about the glory. He wasn't about that. He's just quite fine being an average, as much as average kid as he can. But he's gifted with these powers he never knew he had. So,
you mentioned the theme park, and Tyler, I know you have just a chest full of wands from Universal Studios.
So, like, all right. So, just so you know, my wife wanted her original plan. We were getting a house. She wanted a room that would just be completely Harry Potter themed. So she loaded up, and this was her, not me.
It
She
was her.
loaded.
Yeah, I get
Yes,
that.
it was
Yeah.
her. And like scarves, wands. We have potions. We have book covers, like wrappings that you could put on books to make them look like their textbooks. We have a lot of things. So to have something like that, and I love, I didn't get to say this earlier, that you can tell what scene in the movie this is from, like that
Yeah.
you could tell that came from right after the basilisk fight. And I like that they put that kind of detail in. But to have something like that, we would absolutely go crazy. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Right, and it's available, Propstore, propstore.com. You can check it out. You can bid.
Right. Yeah, we have an auction going on from June 28th through June 30th. You can go right now at propstore.com, see the entire catalog of over 1,400 items. We do have some Harry Potter things, including the letters. If maybe you don't have enough for the full costume or the wand, but we have things like letters, and we have artwork even as well that was used for some of the Harry Potter movies or some of the licensing products that came out afterwards, which is also very cool. And I think that's what we pride ourselves on is, fans out there, they don't always have tens of thousands of dollars to spend on things. We're going to showcase some of the things that we have here. They might be on the more expensive side, a few $1,000s, but we also have things that are a few $100s or, in the low thousands as well that are still cool. And that's what I would suggest is collecting movie memorabilia may not be top of mind as much as may a comic book. I started collecting comic books and they're very accessible. If you go to our website, it becomes a lot more accessible. And especially if you come out here to Valencia and get immersed in it, you start seeing that, you can actually own something from your favorite movie or television show. And then you learn over time too, it doesn't have to necessarily cost you an arm and a leg, so to speak.
Absolutely, Chuck.
Pun with an arm.
We appreciate you so much taking the time. Propstore as well. We were gonna make it out this year. I swear, we were gonna make it over there for the LA auction. Tyler is having a child at the end of the month. Due date is the same weekend as the auction. So
the exact day.
Well, yeah. I mean,
we had to weigh the options.
Yeah, I mean, there is phone access. We were going to be doing it at the Peterson Museum. It's on if you can line up a helicopter, they can sort of land on the roof, take you to wherever you need to go.
Okay,
there it is.
Yeah.
We're 100% looking forward to potentially next year. We'll slide over. We want to check it out in person. We want to see these things in person and really talk to you guys in person. I think that'd be a really cool experience. So we'll be looking forward to the auction at the end of the month, and we'll be definitely watching to see how things go and maybe even bidding. I don't know. We'll have to see what we can find in there.
You can find something. You always got to find something, and they make great gifts too sometimes.
Absolutely.
Think about the holiday season's only a half a year away. But so I have one more thing I think we have to talk about. Is something behind me or no?
Oh, what's that? Did we have one more thing?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to mention that. But people watching it I think you probably have seen Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I mean,
want to mention
it. Listen, it wasn't on our list, but we know exactly what that is. Absolutely.
Yes, easily.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is Princess Leia from the very end sequence of Star Wars, the Star Wars: A New Hope, as they call it now. This is the medal ceremony, I guess, dress. And interesting story behind it is that it was found, I think, over 10 years ago and was kind of wadded up, and somebody had worn it to a fancy dress party. It was sort of, discarded after the production and sort of kept, and then it's been now lovingly restored and put on a museum like frame, or it's a sort of a custom mannequin build that you've got here, but it's just a beautiful piece. It screen matches the belt. You can tell all the little details. So real piece of history that we're going to be auctioning off there that just, I would encourage you, if nothing else, to go to the website just to look at all those great pictures of Carrie Fisher in this dress. It's sort of magic to be able to handle a piece like this.
Yeah, that's a major piece. It's on your front page of the website, propstore.com. Check it out. To see that closer is incredible, and we appreciate you guys throwing that in. Yeah, we didn't. It wasn't on our list, but because we didn't want anybody moving it, on our behalf.
That's why we set up shop right behind her. In front of
yeah. Would you say that that's the star of the show? Is that do you guys have a major focal point each year?
We do. It's always funny throughout the year. We're sort of treasure hunters because we never know. As soon as we do an auction, we have to start from scratch all over again and say what's going to come in the door. And sometimes the auctions bring things out. People say, "Hey, I never knew." We sold, for instance, an elf costume for $300,000 a few years ago. People are like, "Wow, elf stuff is going for a lot of money. I have this in my garage." So sometimes that does happen. I'd say the other one that we're auctioning, and this one is the Bat Pod. from
Oh
the
yes.
Christopher Nolan movies. So those were practical machines that they specially made for the movie that came out of the tumbler. I think there was at least 4 of them were made, but Warner Brothers, we actually sold this same one a few years ago as part of an official Warner Brothers sale. And then it was actually on display at the Peterson Museum, which is where we'll be holding the auction on June 28th. But it was on loan to them, and now it's coming back and going up for auction so that somebody else out there can own it. But it's a great practical, like especially if you're a gearhead, it's like the ultimate Batman thing that you can have, especially from the Nolan franchise, where there's very, very little material that has been released to the public.
Okay.
Yeah, that thing.
And those are
incredible.
both estimated at $1 million to $2 million each.
Oh
so
my goodness!
those are people with big pockets can afford those. But I promise, not everything is that expensive.
Right. Well, the money's in those tires, man. They're so big. Those
tires,
it's really the tires. That's it. I know how much it is to get some new tires.
It's all the tires. Yeah.
Absolutely, Chuck. Thank you so much, man. We appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to doing this again in the future.
Hey, thanks for having us on, and enjoy the movies as you guys get to see some of these in the future.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Catch you later.